Hello and welcome. This is the bitsvsbytes podcast. I am your host, Amagreech, and today with me is Jeroen van Heijden. He is the customer experience and research lead for the Innovation Studio at PostNL. Welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Jeroen, let's start off a little bit about yourself. So a little bit about your background and also how you got to work at PostNL.
Yeah, I'm Jeroen van Heijden, and my background is in behavioral psychology. So I studied that in Amsterdam, and then I started working at Valsplat. I think actually Joris Leker was in this podcast as well.
Yeah, one of the guests.
yeah, exactly. And Valsplat is a user experience design and research consultancy, and that was always focused on understanding the user and getting the right insights in order to make the right design decisions. Mm-hmm. And PostNL was one of their clients, and I was involved in the when they started working on this innovation studio. And I got really excited, and that was actually one of the projects I did at Valsplat. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I made the switch. Actually informing my bosses beforehand as well, because we kept a really good relationship. Then I made the switch to PostNL Innovation Studio, and was actually one of the first employees over there.
Okay. So you said you started with behavioral psychology. What spoke to you about that? So what was interesting about that?
Well, both of my parents are psychologists, but they are more focused on the clinical part, like healing people. But still, just the whole idea of what happens in our mind and how behavior works, but more on a applied context. How do people behave in the streets or online? That always fascinated me, and how the brain works by itself. So that whole that whole part of psychology really spoke to me. Yeah.
So what spoke to you about PostNL to join them? So about joining the Innovation Studio?
PostNL as a company, I find it really interesting. It's of course market leader in postal and parcel delivery, and so it has a huge impact on society. It's really it's an important company for Holland. And at the same time, their innovation strategy or their department was pretty much non-existent. So it was really exciting for me to join that. And I love the guts and glory of startups, but at the same time, I love the impact you can make in a corporate. So for me, that whole startup thinking combined with the power of a corporate, that was the sweet spots, and that really appealed to me.
Yeah, and the interesting part is that's something that's kind of a trend I'm noticing, is that a lot of corporates are starting these kind of startups inside of their own kind of environment, right? Yeah. So the startup thing is a few people start up something within the company. It usually or it gets a different label, or it doesn't. It's kind of one of those two things, but. It starts up within the corporate because they see like, okay, if we want to innovate, we have to have like a smaller team or at least a few people that are working on that. So how big is the Innovation Studio at the moment?
It's actually quite small.
Okay.
We are with a core team of 6 people. Okay. And so those are more like research and design and analysts. We have a guy who's the lean startup coach, and we have a team with some interns around it, and also people from the business. So the core team is quite small, but combined with the people from the business, the interns, we try to expand ourselves, and at the same time we don't really want to claim that we're the only one working on innovation in PostNL. That would that wouldn't be healthy, I think. But it is. For us, it's really nice to have a small team with a lot of focus and energy. But we need the business. We need to connect with the business. So that's why we involve problem owners. We don't call them product owners. We call them problem owners. So it's sort of their problem, and we're there to help them understanding the problem and the solutions.
So how does that process work when you look at, for example, how does a a problem, if you can call it like that, how does that land with you? So say for instance someone says, okay, I have this and this problem. How does it land at the innovation studio? But also how do you pick which one to pick up? Because there are a lot of problems that you could solve, of course.
Yeah. Well, there are several ways that could happen. Sometimes it's something that it's really a subject that's so clear that we need to pick it up. And for example, there's the issue of people missing the parcels, and so that's maybe even the biggest issue that PostNL has.
Yeah, for sure.
People miss the parcels. Yeah. So there's many topics and many solutions that you can think of that.
Yeah.
And so one. So that is a main focus of the Innovation Studio, is how can we in that during with the e-commerce buying journey and receiving your parcel, or actually missing it, or preventing that people are going to miss their parcel.
Yeah,
that is a topic that and based on that topic we have a couple of projects. So for example, a big one is we call it ontvangerloos ontvangen, or OLO, which basically means that how can we, in the future, people are not going to be at home anymore, or that's already, of course,
it's already happening.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
So how can we use that and live with that information, and trying to think of solutions for delivering the parcel without the person being home.
Yeah.
So, and that's an example of a project that is really important for the studio, and it makes a lot of sense that we're doing that. But there's also a different project. For example, we call it minder lucht vervoeren.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of parcels contain a lot of air. Of course, when you order it from web shop and you open it at home, there's a big box with a really small product,
and a really big plastic balloon
exactly.
inside of it.
Yeah. And that's and that project came to life in the studio because our manager from the Innovation Studio, we all noticed this problem, but it was a problem that is, it's relevant for the entire business, for the entire chain of PostNL. But nobody was really picking it up. So that's why he thought, hey, maybe it's a good idea if we bring all those different business units together and have a brainstorm and trying to understand the problem better. So that came sort of out of our own
you found it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also, we have some brainstorms now and then where we as a team come up with new cool ideas and propositions. So it can come from anywhere.
So how do you how does that process work? So say for instance you have a brainstorm, right?
Yep.
Usually the best ideas come from a why, right? So why are we doing this way? Or why is this like that, right? There's actually a good book on that. One of the podcast guests, Ilko, which was at Macaw, he mentioned it to me. It's called A More Beautiful Question, actually.
Okay.
It's a pretty good book that goes into also starting from like a young age, right? Kids are like always like, why is this like that? Why? And we kind of stopped that after going to school and stuff like that. But it is the best way to kind of brainstorm, in my opinion.
Sure.
To find out what are actually the problems, and then also kind of try to think about it a little bit different than what you're actually doing at the moment. Because what I've noticed is that a lot of companies have that. You're constantly in the business and you're like in that, and nobody stops to think and say, okay, why are we doing this? Right? Why are we doing this way? Is that something that how that goes in those kind of brainstorm sessions as well?
Well, we really try to understand the problem really well.
Yeah.
And in order to understand that problem, you need to ask why, 5 times, for example. So to really understand, okay, what are the drivers or the causes of the problems, and why is this a big problem, and maybe it's related to another problem. So, and in brainstorms, it is really good to have a clear problem definition in order to have, sort of, we call it like the problem space that you're trying to focus on.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it gets way too broad.
Yeah, what are you actually trying to solve?
Yeah, exactly. For example, we had a brainstorm not like 2 days ago with the whole mail and postal division, who suffers from, or has the problem that the postal volumes are declining rapidly, and
just the normal letters and stuff.
Exactly,
like that,
the normal letters. I mean, of course, e-commerce. There's a lot of stuff.
Packages the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Parcel business is growing really fast.
Yeah.
So, but in that brainstorm, we focused on how might we use the assets of the postal service, or, all those access to letterboxes, or the big orange letterboxes on the street, or the vans, or the delivery people, and how can we leverage those assets and find new business models, or and so coming to your question, first asking ourselves, okay, so why, what is the problem, and why is this a problem, and then we peeled the onion, and then we thought, okay, so the biggest problem is that mail volume is
going down,
declining.
Yeah.
So how might we come up with new ideas to generate more volume for mail?
Yeah. And as you mentioned before, I think the biggest problem is actually people missing their parcel, right? So in the sense of, I've had it myself, and I think everybody can relate, where they order a parcel, and then you get like a track and trace, and you can see when it's about to come, and you're like, okay, I'll be there between 3 and 5, or I don't know, in the afternoon or something like that. And for some reason, it was really stupid. The last time I missed it was because my actual ring, the doorbell didn't ring because it was broken.
Yeah.
And we have like an apartment building where the doorbell is downstairs, right? So he was ringing, but I didn't hear it. So I was like, okay, I missed it, and I called PostNL. I was kind of furious, but it wasn't their fault in that sense. I didn't know that it didn't work. So, but later on, for example, the next day it came along, and I put like a little note, like, okay, if you're there, just call me, and I'll come down and pick it up. And that he actually did it, the delivery guy. So I think we don't give the delivery guys enough credit for that, right? They have all kinds of situations that they get in. For example, office buildings where it's hard to pick up. So one of the interesting stories that I saw lately was with the boxes, right? So with the kind of delivery boxes, or however you want to call them. So the kind of storage things where someone can just come pick up the packages and stuff like that. Is that that's one of the things, right? That's in that kind of project, I think.
Yeah. You mean the big ones?
Yeah, so the big ones where you can actually, where they leave the packages and you can come up and pick them up. So how does that work? I haven't tried it yet. It isn't here yet. But how does that work for someone that's going to pick it up, for example?
Well, hopefully very easy, because it's delivered in the parcel box, and then with a special code, you can
pick it up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So another thing that's interesting to me is that because you mentioned you're pretty much the market leader for these kind of things, right? For delivery and stuff like that. So why is it still important to keep innovating then? Because a lot of people would say, okay, you're the market leader. Why innovate at all, right? There's no one coming to steal your business in that sense. Why do you think it's still important?
Yeah, well, in a general sense, every company should keep on innovating in order to stay future proof. And well, despite being the market leader, there's actually quite a few threats.
Yeah.
Well, for example, the one that I just mentioned, in the postal market. It's rapidly declining, of course. People are just sending
who sends letters?
Who sends letters anymore? It's actually still quite a lot. But still, a lot of companies, that's declining. Exactly. A lot of B2B mailings and direct mailings and stuff like that. But still, it's declining. So that's one of the reasons that we have to find new ways for leveraging the current mail network, for example. So, and innovation is a way to come up with new ideas, new business models for that. But at the same time, the parcel business is growing very rapidly with about 20% a year or something like that. And keeping that profitable is also quite a big challenge.
Yeah.
But there's also threats like retailers doing delivery themselves. Like Amazon is doing that in other countries. Coolblue as well.
Yep.
And so those are some threats. And by innovating, you can try out new ideas very quickly. Of course, see what sticks, see what doesn't stick. Yeah. And of course, more in a general sense, the world is rapidly changing. Change is more exponential. Yeah. And if you don't innovate, then then it's pretty certain that your business is going to get disrupted.
Even though you're a market leader.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. I was talking to Fonda about that as well. And they have the same it's not a problem, but it is the same kind of challenge, right? They also need to keep listening to the client what they actually want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we have, maybe it's a luxury, I'm not sure, but we have the physical part, you know, like Fonda or other mainly like digital companies
don't.
It's very easy to get disrupted if there's a better service. So that's every company, of course, is digital in a sense. So and also customers. So they demand top-notch experiences. People are much more vocal and much more demanding than, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And in order to, keep on understanding and keep on delivering that top-notch customer experience, you have to try out new things. And you have to, stay on top, stay the best one. PostNL, has the ambition to be to stay the most geliefde bezorger.
The most loved one.
The lovable delivery guy, or something. I don't know how it translates. But and in order to stay that, we have to try out new stuff. So that's why innovation is crucial.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, what I would want to try and see is also, so for example, you experiment a lot, right? So you have a lot of experiments going on in the innovation lab. So how do you actually validate those experiments? So how do you gain insights from them? And also, how do you validate if it's a good idea or not?
We use many ways, actually. But research and experimentations is like the bread and butter of the Innovation Studio. Our goal is to keep PostNL future-proof, and doing that, we have created a sort of a learning machine, and so that's why we do a lot of experiments. And I've written a few down because we
so much.
Usual, so definitely. We have the usual ones, of course, where you do interviews, you do surveys, you do, if you have a service, or at least, if you trying to build an MVP, we do a lot of more like Wizard of Oz and concierge model, where you fake the service, we actually deliver the service, but it's not doesn't really work and in the background, as in you have to do a lot of stuff yourself. And those are all, like the surveys and the user testing and the Wizard of Oz, they're all very good ways of doing your research and getting your validating your assumptions. But there's one risk with most of those tools, if you want to, if we can call them that you don't really measure behavior. And we, if you want to really know for sure that people are gonna love this new idea, you can ask them using a survey or doing some interview, but people are really bad at predicting their own behavior. Even with the best intentions, people are really, they really want to explain and tell you how they're gonna love or hate your product.
They're like, okay, it was good.
Exactly,
it was okay.
Exactly. And so that's why, because people are really bad at predicting their own behavior and experiences, and at the same time, we have to, make try out new ideas. That's why we use a lot of a thing called we call fake doors.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No. Go ahead, actually.
So, and the idea behind it is that you measure behavior instead of ask for opinions.
Okay.
Because people are really bad at
Of giving their opinion, unless it's bad.
or predicting their own behavior. And the goal is to understand if an idea is desirable, if people want it, or if they want to pay for it. Yeah. And if you, for example, use a survey to ask, okay, what do you want to pay for this product? People, with the best intentions, they're really horrible at predicting what they actually will pay. Yeah. But if you use a fake door, you build a facade. You build something that's not really working. You just pretend that it's working. So people don't know that they are in a research. Okay. And that, of course, is very tricky ethically. So sure, more on that later. But it's very reliable. It's very and also valid. Because people are, for example, using a fake landing page, so we pretend the service is there, or pretend we can, people think so that it's real. So then, for example, you say, hey, what about this new app? It has, it does everything that you want, blah, 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 and download it now. Okay. So instead of asking, so what do you want this and this and this in your app? No, you just pretend that it's there, and then you make a sort of a proposition, and you have a download button, and then when you click that, say, sorry, it's not available yet. It's sneaky, but it's very effective because people think it's real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. So from a user's perspective, it could be frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the big downside. Yeah. You basically disappoint people, or you even trick them a little bit. So so you have to be very careful when if you even want to use it. Yeah. And when you use it, you have to be very polite when you're
putting them down.
Exactly, when you have the sorry page. That's why when we have a fake door, we always communicate our own email address. From like onderzoeken@postnl.nl. So people, if they are frustrated or have any more questions, they can just contact us directly.
Yeah, or tips or tricks.
Exactly. But it is very reliable and valid. Yeah. Maybe another example, the point I'm trying to make is you have to measure behavior instead of not like asking for opinions. Is not always the best way to validate an idea. So what we also do is we look for little life hacks, as I call them. You actually mentioned just now that you left a note on the door for your delivery guy. And that note said...
I could have been prank called, by the way.
Fair enough.
Think about it.
But still, and actually one of the topics that we were researching a little while ago was, so what do people actually want? How do people want their parcel delivered? And it dawned on us like, hey, but aren't there a lot of people actually using notes, actually telling us how they want a parcel delivered if they're not at home? And but it turned out nobody in PostNL ever really investigated that. Yeah. So what we did is we just asked people like, okay, do you ever use a note like that? And it turned out like 27% of the people uses notes to inform delivery guys.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Delivery guys, like, okay, telling them what to do with a parcel in case I'm not at home. So that's what. Those are the little life hacks and little behaviors that people actually use to tell us what they want. Yeah. But we weren't really listening. Like it's only so we didn't really provide a way for people to tell us that other than just letting them put a note on the door. So then we measured behavior in that sense. So we asked people, okay, so what do you actually tell the delivery guy?
Yeah, leave it at the neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably,
yeah. That mostly, and it turned out that there was a couple of patterns. And mostly it said it had the if this then that pattern. Like if I'm not at home, leave the parcel under the front porch, or if I'm not at home, leave the parcel at number 44.
Yeah,
but not at those assholes at number 40. So that those are little life hacks and also behavioral patterns that were actually really interesting. So that, and then after that, so that was sort of the looking for behavior again, measuring it, and then after that we did a fake door, where we asked people. So where do you want? That was on the track and trace page. You know, the track and trace.
You have the option, right?
Like on the track and trace page, that's where you follow your parcel. You're ordering shoes, and then it's on the way, and then on that track and trace page, you see when it's being delivered. So we did what we call a fake door, where we try to investigate. Okay, so what we gave people the possibility to leave the delivery instructions online, and just understanding if people were actually willing to tell us what to do with their parcel in case they're not at home. Turned out like more than 50% of the people interacted with that fake door. So that's a pretty massive conversion. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all data that you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't even put the option in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even though someone could be disappointed that the option isn't there, you could of course explain like, okay, we're kind of investigating if this is a good option. Because you already get some options, right? So, for example, if the delivery guy misses you, you're not at home or whatever, you can change it, right? You have up until sometime, I don't know what time is exactly, but you can change it to, for example, I want to have it delivered at the post office or whatever, right? But that's super interesting because, but to get back, you had a point about the ethics for the figure. What was the point about that?
Well, you have to be very, like I said, polite when you disappoint people, and you have to really use it sparsely as a tool, like the fake door. So we prefer like surveys and or like I said before, like investigating real behavior, asking for past behavior instead of using fake doors. But when you use it, you have to be, like I said, polite, and also very upfront about your intentions.
So I want to talk about sustainability a little bit.
Yep.
So you mentioned that as one of the things that we could talk about. So I would like to know, is there, because sustainability is a big thing, so what are kind of the things that you think about while thinking about the innovations and stuff like that, but also to keep in mind the sustainability?
Well, like you said, it's a big thing. I think it's also a growing topic.
Yeah.
Of course, it's still quite vague. Like, what do we mean with sustainability?
Yeah, for sure.
But I know that, within PostNL, it's just part of the culture as well. It's part of the cultural values and stuff. So, and for when you have to combine that with innovation, I actually think that. But that's my personal opinion, that no really good innovations are sustainable by default. Yeah, exactly. For a couple of reasons, that people are, like the customers, they demand a really good experience, but a couple of years ago, like, customer experience was like a defining feature, a USP, something that if you have a really good customer experience, then people will return. Of course, that's still the case.
Yeah.
But now, customer experience, like delivering something that people want, is
it's kind of the norm.
Exactly, it's the norm, and that's a good thing. And I again, my personal idea is that the sustainability is now, maybe it could be a USP, where companies are.
Yeah.
They're
still
claim that
thinking
they're
about it. Yeah,
exactly. There's like some companies claim that they're very sustainable, and that way people are more driven to those companies or more loyal.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that is slowly becoming the norm. So that's
Makes
shifting.
sense.
Yeah. So, and I think that's also happening for PostNL.
Yeah.
But the thing is with sustainability, you have to look at you have to sort of prove the business value of sustainability. Otherwise, it will never become important for a business, because at the end of the day, you're a business. You need to survive, grow, make money. And if sustainability is only about doing good, then it's important maybe for the employees and for the customers. Yeah. But for bottom line, if it doesn't really
if it costs a lot of money,
exactly.
Exactly. It makes sense. I mean, you don't want to go down just because you want to be sustainable.
No, exactly. And actually, we're working on a cool project we call minder luchtvervoeren. So getting like I talked about before briefly, reducing the amount of air in parcels.
Yeah.
Well, as you can imagine, for a company like PostNL, smaller parcels or parcels at this moment contain a lot of air. If you can reduce that air, then it's really efficient. It's you can fit more parcels in a van.
Yeah.
Very simple. And at the same time, that really is environmentally friendly, or at least you save gasoline, or you save parcel material. Like a carton. So the point is that you have to sort of prove and make the business case that that being sustainable is actually profitable. Or that being unsustainable is bad for business.
Well, this is actually the case. So, say for instance, if you take this thing that you are doing right now with the less air in parcels, it has a business case. Because if you can move more parcels, that's even better, right? But I was wondering about that, because when you talk about that, you're not responsible for the packaging of the parcel, right? That's
True.
The tricky part, because for example, a web shop is. If I'm ordering, like, I don't know, a really small thing, like I don't know, a toothbrush or something like that, just as an example. If I'm doing that and someone decides to get a really big parcel and send it to me, that's not something you can do. You can't do anything about that, right?
I'm actually really happy that you're asking this question.
Because it does make sense.
Yeah, we actually investigated exactly this. So what we did, because you're right, PostNL has the issue that parcels are larger, contain a lot of, false air, if I may say it like that. And we have that issue. It's inefficient for us, and blah, blah, blah. The user, the customer also is annoyed, but the web shop decides how to pack it, or the fulfillment center. And so what we did is actually measure the impact of smart packaging, like with really airtight, or and also, like, I'm just calling it dumb packaging, with too big. And so we asked people, like a lot of people in a survey. So how happy are you when parcels are packed really, when you receive a large parcel with a lot of material? Well, obviously, a lot of people were not happy with that. 80% of the people was like not happy with that. But then we asked, okay, so but who do you blame? Do you blame the delivery company like PostNL? Do you blame the web shop, or maybe the producer? And then so they could choose between all. They could choose all options, but in 76% of the cases, people blame the web shop for packing, for the
so
bad
they know
packaging.
who it is.
Exactly. And then we asked, and what does it do with your intention to keep on buying stuff at that web shop? And then 34% said, I would rather not buy again at this web shop. And then it becomes interesting, because then you can link unsustainability, bad packaging, with a direct impact on business for web shops, which is retention, and that's actually where you have to sort of look for the business case of sustainability.
Yeah.
You know what I
so
mean?
you can as PostNL say to a web shop, for example, or at least you can inform them somehow
exactly.
that, okay, look, guys, this is a research that we did under this many people, and this is what people were saying, right? So it benefits you if you pick smaller packaging or smarter packaging in that sense.
Yeah, and in the end, it benefits everybody.
Everyone.
The web shops, PostNL, consumers, and also the planet. Yeah. And conversely, we also did the research where we investigated. Okay, so what does it do with the happiness of customers? When you wrap the parcels really well, or pack them really tight, airtight, and stuff. And no big surprises there because it was just the other way around. People give credit to the web shop for the smart packaging, and it turns out people are more loyal. At least that's what they say. I haven't measured behavior yet. But we're working on that.
Yeah, I think there are exceptions maybe when this is the only web shop that you can buy this thing at. But I mean that doesn't happen that much.
But in a general sense, so here we also one of the goals is to have sustainable innovations. But the only way, or at least a really very effective way to achieve that is if you can sort of prove that sustainability is good for business and unsustainability is bad for business. So,
that makes sense. So, you implement things through some kind of lean startup methodology. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. But could you tell a little bit about what it is for the people that don't know, but also how you implemented it?
Well, in short, lean startup is a way to develop products, or to at least find out if a business model is working. Exactly. So first you check out the market. Who's our customer? What problems do they have? And is the idea that we have, like the solution that we're having in mind, does it work, or do people are they enthusiastic? And like iteratively, with build, measure, learn cycles, you sort of test your hypothesis, your assumptions, and it's well, not exact science, but it's definitely scientific in a way that you do an experiment, you measure results. That could be like, are the people willing to pay, or are they happy or unhappy? And by continuously building, measuring, and learning, you find out if an idea is working or not.
And if you're going to actually implement it.
Yeah, exactly. And the only goal of a startup is to understand if it has any right for existing. And anyway, so that's in short, that's the general process. For us, so we apply that on projects. We try to scope them in time, for example, for 100 days. So within 100 days, we try to deliver a validated idea, and then we can decide, okay, are we gonna keep on learning, or we're gonna scale up, or are we gonna kill it? And we do that we work at B Amsterdam. It's
I know the office building, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a startup ecosystem.
There are a lot of startups in that. It's interesting to me that you mentioned that. Just a sidetrack here, but it is interesting to me that there's such a large building where a lot of these startups are actually joining and actually collaborating with each other on all kinds of stuff.
It's like an ecosystem, as they call it. And maybe it's interesting to talk about that later a little bit more as well, like the place of the Innovation Studio within the company, literally. But anyway, for us, the lean startup process, we like I said, we try to limit it to 100 days to time box it a little bit. Otherwise, it's a never-ending story. Yeah, and we work in sprints of 2 weeks mainly, normally, and we try to do one experiment each sprint. So that you can build, measure, learn. Within each sprint, you can get new insights. And also we have what we call war rooms, where we have we keep one team has one, is working on one project, and they have their own room, and it's filled with canvases, like the lean canvas or the project canvases, value proposition canvases, stuff like that.
Yeah. So what happens after the 100 days? So for instance,
we call it a stage gate, and then we decide, okay, are we gonna keep on experimenting, or have we learned enough, and can we scale the experiment up or go to the business? Like maybe someone from the business can implement it, or we can kill it.
Yeah.
And so that's we call a stage gate, and the stakeholders are involved then as well. They can we have a discussion, we present our insights, results, and they and together we decide, okay, what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a great. That was something that came up. So, while you were talking about this, I was wondering how does it go? For example, when you validate an idea and you say, okay, this is something we should really do, or we at least think we should do. So, how does that land with the business then? Is that something that you like present in that way and say, okay, let's make a decision about it? So how does that go?
First of all, we really try to involve people from the business from the start.
Yeah.
So actually, we never do projects which are only consist of members from the innovation studio.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, there's no link with the business. You have this,
and it's harder to get support in that sense as well.
Exactly. You get the sort of the not invented here syndrome.
Yeah.
And so that's why we. Usually we try to involve a lot of people from different business lines at the start of a project.
Yeah.
For example, with that minder luchtvervoer, we involved many different people from business in order to get on the same page and really understand the problem thoroughly. And then we, we have the problem owner who is part of the team. And after as a team and the stakeholders, we decide, okay, this is something that the business should pick up.
Yeah.
Then the problem owner usually takes it into the business and trying to get IT on board, for example.
To get the support to actually implement it.
Yeah, exactly, to implement it. Yeah.
So just to get back to that part, what you wanted to say about the company being in a in a different spot. What do you want to say about that?
Well, we are located at Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And but the company itself is located in The Hague. That's where headquarters is. And a little bit in Hoofddorp as well, but that's all moving to The Hague. But as an innovation studio, we're in Amsterdam, so there's the risk, of course, that we are on an island.
Yeah, kind of disconnected in that
exactly
sense.
Disconnected, and then it's that's the risk is then that nobody will listen to us, or at least that we lose our connection with the business. And so that's also for us really important to have the connection with the business by getting problem owners on board, for example, of having stage gates at the innovation studio to just to show what we're having.
Why not move it to The Hague?
It
could be a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. It's not needed anymore in this kind of day and age, right? And I mean, the Netherlands are not that big. I mean, from The Hague to Amsterdam, it's like 45 minutes or something like that. But I understand that feeling, because you need those people, of course, to basically they're your colleagues, right? I mean, it's not like it's a different company in that sense.
No.
So it is interesting that you are not in the same spot, but on the other hand, it shouldn't be a problem where you are located. I mean, we have the same thing with our developers, for example, which are in Serbia, which is not even in the same country. No. But you still have that kind of connection. You still have a kind of daily routine that you go through.
Yeah.
So do those people from the business, for example, from The Hague, do they like visit you when they are on some kind of a project or whatever? How does that go?
Well, if we have a problem owner, then we have usually 1, 2, or 3 days a week that they are here and or at least in our location in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they need to be as close as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So you're a team. So then you work together. Yeah.
Or at least via conferencing, but usually in person is even better if you can. Of course.
We try to have at least one day together as a team, preferably 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you see kind of the future for these kind of things for example for clients, right? So what's kind of the future where you can see like technological advancements and stuff like that? What do you see there?
Well, an important part is in the stuff that we're focusing on, at least, it's like the delivery journey. Yeah. So receiving your parcels and what's going to change, I think, or what the future is more going to look like is it's becoming more and more normal that people are not at home when their parcel is delivered. And so a lot of technological improvements are going to revolve around that, I think, like preventing that you're going to miss your parcel. And for example, like the parcel locker that you talked about, or maybe we're also experimenting with like small personal parcel lockers, like but really, really simple ones, like a kluis basically. How do you call that?
A vault.
A vault, but like on your house or smart locks. Yeah, where people can actually enter your door or your.
Yeah, there was
garage.
Yeah, there was some kind of smart lock thing, I think in America or something like that, where they were also like, okay, you can give your delivery guy access for a limited amount of time.
Or exactly. Yeah. Or maybe give him access to your garage, so then he doesn't enter your house. Because that could still be sensitive. Yeah. So having new technologies basically trying to help you to so you don't have to be at home when the parcel is delivered.
I think that's the main thing, because a lot of people are like, okay, you see kind of the thing that Amazon is doing with the drones and stuff like that, and the kind of delivery robots and stuff like that. I mean, it's a good idea. On the one hand, it's still how is this even gonna work, right? Because if you're in an apartment building like I am, then I'm like, okay, how are you even gonna get to my door if it's a drone or whatever, right? It will still be something. I can imagine it still being something like one particular spot where those things are going to be delivered, right? It's still one thing. I mean, it could be something like that. It makes sense. So
I don't know about drones though.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm also not sold on the idea for some reason. But
maybe at least not in Holland. I don't see it working. But
I don't know. Yeah, it maybe in a rural kind of way it could work, right? So where there are not a lot of houses around and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it will change. I mean, we don't know how it will look like.
No,
but it's something that when I heard about it, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if that would be the best. I mean, the locker would be an ideal kind of solution for me. I already, most of the time when I can, I will pick, for example, deliver at the post office. Yeah. Because I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to stay and wait, or deliver at work, which is also a thing that happens a lot, I think.
And I think so the changes are more revolved around that, and some of them are actually quite low tech. Like we're experimenting with dropping your parcel off at or at least picking a parcel up at the gas station. On your commute to home. Yeah, why not? Why
gas stations are open a lot.
So. Exactly. Or we're also toying with the idea that why not make bigger holes in your front door. Make the so that actually more parcels can be put through it instead of just only the letterbox. So like bigger letterboxes, literally. And that's quite low tech, but but at least there's various ways at least to and they're all focused on you not missing your delivery.
Yeah. Sometimes it already happens, right? So if a parcel is can fit through a letterbox, it will probably be delivered in your letterbox. So that already happens.
Yeah, that's also one of the focuses of that minder lucht, less air. Yeah. Really big advantage is if you make packages more airtight. That we have this a product called the Fashion Pack, where your clothing is actually vacuumed.
So it's airtight and
it's really airtight. So then it can quite easily fit through your letterbox.
Yeah, I think I did. And that was that helps, of course. I mean, it's all these kinds of small things, I think, that are going to make that impact.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people are like, okay, how are we going to solve the problem of the delivery guy or the girl? That's not the thing you want to change, right? You want to make it more comfortable for people to get their package. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. So. My last question to wrap up. What are you most proud of since you started this whole journey that you're on right now?
Actually, the product that we're currently working on, the Minderlucht.
Yeah,
I think that's it's a really nice example where there's a nice sweet spot between. Do you know the sort of the Venn diagram of desirability, viability, and feasibility? That's sort of the standard way of looking at innovation. But there's a sort of a fourth circle of sustainability.
Yeah,
where they are all overlapping, and I think
you're actually in the center of it. Yeah,
exactly, and that's where I'm pretty proud that as a innovation team we are working on that project, and we're actually seeing some pretty interesting results, like I said before, and the impact on customer. So we're linking now customer experience to like happy experiences with smart packaging, and link that back to the web shop in order to motivate them to use.
Helps all of us.
Yeah, exactly. And also we're looking for ways like why are we actually even using a second parcel box anyway? If you're ordering a lot like
a laptop, for example.
Yeah, laptops, or mainly if you're looking at like more home and garden stuff, like a vacuum cleaner or an ironing.
They already have a good box. Yeah.
Exactly, they already have a pretty good box. So and that's what we also are learning. That in many cases, at least the consumers don't really need that second web shop box.
No.
So and we're thinking now, hey, maybe we can team up with some manufacturers, and have them make more e-commerce and shipping ready boxes from the product itself. Yeah. So then don't even need a second box. Yeah, and then everybody's happy.
It already happens with some cases, right? I mean, I have the case, for example. The last time that I ordered a big thing was probably a TV or something like that, and it didn't come in a box.
No. So it's already there, and a lot. But I think there's actually a lot more products that we can, as a whole, as a sector, from the manufacturer to the web shop to the us as the transport, as a logistic party. We can make that whole chain more sustainable, more profitable, and I'm pretty proud that we're working on that as well. Yeah,
very cool. Thank you a lot, Jeroen, for your time, and also of course people can find PostNL on postnl.nl and of course the PostNL app and all those kinds of things. Is there something for the Innovation Studio, something separately, or is it just postnl.nl?
We don't have a separate website. But exactly. People can always email me if you have any questions.
I'll put it in at least your LinkedIn, so people can find you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. And of course, for the listeners, you can find the Bits vs. Bytes podcast on bitsvsbytes.com, and also, of course, on all major podcasting platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It's all Bits vs. Bytes. And there's a newsletter now where a lot of people can find every 2 weeks you'll get 5 things about tech, leadership, and business. And you can find that on bitsvsbytes.com/newsletter. And of course, I would like to thank you for listening, and until next time.